Let's do a review of Chapter 6. So I'm going to pick 2-3 problems from each section, go through them, and hopefully will help you cement all the information that we cover. So the first question here, find the greatest common factor of 9m to the third n, comma, 24m to the fourth, comma, and 15m squared n squared. And the question, the greatest common factor, the largest thing all three have in common. It has to be in all three terms, the largest thing. So let's look at the numbers, 9, 24, and 15. The biggest number we can divide the 9, the 24, and the 15 by is the 3. So 3, that's common to all of them. That's the largest common number to all of them. 15 is 3 times 5. This is not divisible by 5, neither this. 9 3 times 3. 3 is good. 24 is 3 times 8. 3 is good. 8 is not. Now let's look at the m's. This has 3, this has 4, this has 2. It has to be the same thing from all three of them. So the largest thing we can take out 2 m's, 3m squared. And what about the n? Nothing, because this doesn't have any n in it. So the greatest common factor of these three terms, or three monomials, is 3m squared. Question number 2. Factor. Again, when we say factor, that's factor completely. Let's try this one. 16 p to the third q to the second plus 18 p squared q minus 4 p q squared. I'm just making things up. Now let's look at the numbers, the 16, the 8, and the 4. Well, the 4 is divisible by 4, the 16 is divisible by 4. Can I divide 18 by 4? No. So I can't take the 4. But they're all also divisible by 2. 16 is divisible by 2, 18 is divisible by 2, 4 is divisible by 2. So the greatest common factor, there's the 2. I know there's a 2. Let's look at the p's. This has 3, this has 2, this has 1. I can only take 1 from each one. Q. This one has 2, this one has 1, this one has 2. I can only take 1 q out. So what is left in the first one? What is 16 divided by 2? That's an 8. Now let's look at the p's. You get 3 of them, you took 1 out. There's still 2 of them here. We get 2 q's, you took 1 out, there's still 1 on the inside. There's the plus. (18) divided by 2, that's a 9. You have 2 p's, you took 1 out, they still have a p here. You only had 1 q, you took it out, nothing left. There's the minus. 4 divided by 2, that's a 2. You had 1 p, but you took it out, nothing left. You had 2 q's, you took 1 out, that means there's still 1 inside. And that should be my factor. Let's try another one. Factor xb, I'm sorry, minus 5b minus 2x plus the 10. Factor that. Notice you have 4 terms. When you have 4 terms, you want to be thinking about factor by grouping. That's the first group. That's the second group. Let's look at the first group. What do they have in common? The b. If you take the b out, what's left? X minus the 5. Now, if I have x minus 5, I want to have x minus 5 here. Let me look at this second group. I can take out a negative 2. If I take a negative 2 out, what's left here? X. What's 10 divided by negative 2? That's a negative 5. So again, if you multiply that, that's a negative 2x. What's a negative 2 times a negative 5? That's the plus 10. So that's why we switch that sign. If you put a plus here, plus 5, negative 2 times a plus 5, that will make that a negative 10, which is not correct. Now notice these two are the same. We can factor that outside. And if you look and see what's left in each term, what's left in this one? Once you take this one out, there's the b left here, and there's the minus, and there's the 2. So x minus 5 times b minus 2. Factor. Well, you know what? Let me just rephrase this. Factor if possible. So factor if possible. It might not be possible. Let me take x squared plus x plus 1. Notice the leading coefficient is 1 here. So if you're going to factor that, it's going to be x and x. And since this sign is positive, that tells me both signs have to be the same as this one. So both have to be positive. If it can be done. I'm not sure yet. Well, here is the plus 1. Let's list the factors of plus 1. And the sum of the factors. Since both numbers are going to be positive, the only way to get a plus 1 if you take a 1 times a 1. But when you multiply 1 times a 1, what's their sum? That's a 2. Do we have a 2 here? No. That's the only option you can factor the 1. So we can't factor this one. If you can't factor it, then this is a prime polynomial. Can't be factored. Prime. Remember prime numbers? Prime numbers are numbers divisible by 1 and the number itself. This is the same thing. This is a prime. It can't be divided or factored. So there are some problems you can't factor them. That's question 4. Let's do question 5. Again, factor if possible. y squared plus 42 plus 13y. Remember what I said before, I like to write them in descending power. What I have here is not in descending power, so I'm going to rewrite that y squared plus 13y plus the 42. So the y squared can be broken down to y and y. This is positive. That tells me both signs the same as this. They're both going to be positive. And now we just need to figure what the two numbers here are, if possible. It might be a prime too. So let's take the 42. And let me write the factors of 42. And their sum. Well, it could be 42 times 1. That's a 42, but the sum is what? 43. Nope. Could be 21 times 2. That's a 42, but the sum here is what? 23. Not good. Could be 6 times 7. That's a 42. The sum is what? 13. Bingo. These are my numbers. 6 and 7, positive 6 and positive 7. Six, factor, if possible, 24 minus 2x squared minus 8x again, put them in descending power. Negative 2x squared minus 8x positive 24. And again, let's take a closer look at them. Yes, yes, yes. They're all divisible by 2 or a negative 2. I don't like a negative here. So let me factor a negative 2 out. I'll make it red. I like my greatest common factor to be in red color. Negative 2. If I take a negative 2 out, what's left? X squared. Now a negative sign here is going to change all the signs on. So this used to be a negative, now it's positive. This a negative becomes a positive. That's a positive will turn to a negative. So what's 8 divided by 2? That's 4x. What's 24 divided by 2? That's what? 12. So it's negative 2. Again, if you distribute that, that's negative 2x squared minus 8x positive 24. Now, can I factor the inside of that? The leading coefficient is still 1. So if it's going to be factored, it's going to be x and x. And let me think of some numbers. This is a negative, which tells me one is positive and one is negative. The signs will have to be different. So negative 12, the factors of negative 12, and their sum. Negative 12 or negative 12 or 12 times a negative 1. I screwed up there. And the result is 11, the sum. I want it to be 4. Could be negative 12 times 1. That'll be negative 11. That's not good. Could be 6 times a negative 2. The result is what? 4, and that's what you want it to be. So it's positive goes with the 6. The negative goes with the 2. X plus 6, x minus 2. And the minus 2 in the front. factor negative 15xy squared plus 3x cubed minus 12x squared y. I notice they all have x cubes in them. I mean x's, not x cube, I'm sorry. They all have x's in them. So let me rewrite that problem in descending power. The highest power of x is 3, then 2, then 1. So if I do that, I write this one first because that's the highest power of x. This is second. And this is the last one because that's the lowest power of x. And let's take a look and see if they have anything in common. The greatest common factor here. Do they share anything? Well, I see a 3 common to all of them. What else do you see? I see an x. So if I take 3x out, so what's left? We have x squared minus 12 divided by 3 is 4. I took one of the x's out, that's xy. 15 divided by 3, which is 5y squared. And again, I'm going to see if I can factor that. That's 3x. The x squared is going to be x and x. The y squared is y and y. The numbers are the only thing. This sign is minus. Again, that lets me know the signs will have to be different. One is positive, one is negative. And let's take a look at the number, the negative 5. Let's find the factors of negative 5 and their sum. Well, it's negative 5 times 1 or 5 times a negative 1. The sum is negative 4, the sum is 4. Well, you want your sum to be what? Negative 4 like this one. So these are the correct factors. The negative 5 and the positive goes with the 1. You don't have to put the 1 here. So but if you want to put the 1, but when you type the answer, don't type the 1. Let's try a few more examples. 8. Factor if possible. 5n squared plus 13n plus the 6. Again, the leading coefficient is not a 1 here, so I got to look at the options. This is 5n times n. This is positive. That tells me both signs are the same as this. They both have to be positive. So the 6 has to be either 2 times 3 or 6 times 1. And again, let's try this option with this one first. So let's try that. 5n, n. Let me try the plus 2 and the plus 3. That gives me what? 2n. This gives me 15n. When you add them, that's 17n. Too much. I want it to be 13n. Flip the 3 and the 2. Let's put the plus 3 here and the plus 2 there and see if that will do it. That's 3n. That's 10n. When you add them, that's what? 13n. Perfect. So when you factor that, the answer is going to be 5n plus 3 times n plus 2. Again, it doesn't matter which one of these two factors you write first. Let's try another one. Factor if possible. 6x squared minus x minus 12. Let's see if we have a greatest common factor. Is there anything common to them? No. Nothing is common. So I can take the 6x squared here. I have two options for that. I can try the 3x times the 2x. I can try the 6x times the 1x. This is a negative, which tells me the signs are different. I can try negative 4 times a 3. Or 4 times a negative 3. I can try negative 6 times 2. Or 6 times a negative 2. I can try negative 12 times 1. Or 12 times a negative 1. So you can see we could be here for the whole day. So hopefully we don't have to stay here too long. Let's try this and this and see if that will do it. So 3x, 2x, let's put the negative 4 on one side and the plus 3 on the other side. Negative 8x, that's what? 9x. The result is 1x. Almost had it. It's supposed to be a plus. I mean a minus. I got a plus here. I know the answer to that. Skip this, go to that, switch the signs. But let's say you didn't see it. You move the numbers. You put the plus 3 on this end. You put the 2x and the minus 4 on that end. 6x, negative 12x, that's a negative 6x. Nope. Then let's try the 4 and the negative 3. How about 3x plus 4, 2x minus the 3. 8x minus 9x, the result is what? Minus 1x. and that's what you want it to be. So when you factor that, there's your factors right here. Factor if possible. 9 y to the third minus 21y plus 60 60 I'm going to use here y squared. Notice they're not in order here, so let me put them in descending power. As I mentioned multiple times, I like to write them in descending power. That's the first step. Put them in descending power. Now, greatest common factor. I notice they're all divisible by 3. So if I take a 3 out, I can also take a y out. If I take 3y out, what's left? 3y squared plus, what is 60 divided by 3? 20y. What's 21 divided by 3 is 7. Well, can I continue factoring? This will be 3y and y. And the negative 7, it's either going to be negative 7 plus 1 or plus 7 minus 1. So let's try negative 7 plus the 1 here. See if that will do it. Negative 7y plus 3y, no way, negative 4y, not good. Let's put the negative 7 there and the 1 here. That's plus 1y, negative 21y, negative 20y. Not good, but close. Notice I get the number, but not the sign. That tells me switch the signs. So if I switch the signs here, I'm good. I'm done. If I switch the sign, I should be in good shape. Because this is a negative y, positive 21, which gives me 20y. And that is the right factoring. Factor if possible. B squared plus 6b plus the 9. This is actually one of those special cases because I can write that b squared plus, I can write that 3 squared, and I can write the 6 as 2 times 3 times b. And if you remember, this is actually a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. If you have something that looks like this, your answer is a plus b, the whole thing squared. So my a here is actually b, and my b here is actually 3. So the answer to this will have to be b plus 3 squared. If you don't like that, go back and do it the other way. Go b squared plus 6b plus 9. The b squared is b and b. This is positive. That tells me both signs are the same. And when you take the 9 and you list the factor of the 9 and the sum, 9 is 3 times 3 or 9 times 1. The sum is 6. The sum is 10. You want your sum to be 6. Notice you want it to be 6 just like this. So it's plus 3, and notice you have a match. They're the same thing. So you can write that b plus 3 squared. As I said, I'm not a huge fan of this method because a lot of people don't remember it after 10 minutes. But you can always go back to the basic factoring, and this, once you master that, you'll know it the rest of your life. Factor if possible. 9a squared minus 24ab plus 16b squared. Notice I can write the 9 as 3a, the whole thing squared. And the 16b squared, I can write that 4b, the whole thing squared. Three times 4 is 12, but that number is 24. Well, the 24 is 2 times 3a times the 4b. 2 times 3, that's 6. 6 times 4 is 24, and there's the a and the b. The reason I put it in this form again, so it will match a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. Because if you have that, your answer is a minus b squared. And my a here is actually 3a, and my b is actually 4b. Let's see factor. If possible. (48) x to the 4th minus 3y to the fourth. Well, quickly again, the greatest common factor, what do they have in common? They have a 3. If you factor a 3 out, what's 48 divided by 3? That's 16x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. And the question, are we done? Can I simplify this even more? Well, if you look at it, there's two terms. There's a minus sign between them. That sounds like the difference of two squares. So you can write that as 4x squared 4x squared minus y squared. And we have one that says a squared minus b squared can be factored as a minus b, a plus b. So if I use that here, that will be 3 times 4x squared minus y squared times 4x squared plus y squared. Very good. But you're still not done with it. Why? Because you can also simplify the inside of that. That's also the difference of two squares. So this will be 2x minus y, 2x plus y, using the same rule here. I can break this one into that, and the last one, because that's a plus, you can't break the plus. And that's actually factored completely. Two more problems, then we're done. Let's do solving. Solve 4x squared plus 4x equals 1. That's a quadratic equation. Step number 1, you got to move everything to one side. So when you move everything to one side, I'm sorry, make that a minus 1 here. When you move everything to one side, change side, change sign. That minus 1 will change to a plus 1. Now I need to factor that. The 4x squared, you can do two options, 2x times 2x or 4x times 1x. This is plus, that tells me both signs the same as this one. Both are positive. So there's only one option, 1 times 1. So let's see if the correct factoring is 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 1. Is that the correct factoring? That's a 2x. That's a 2x, which will make it a 4x. Perfect. So this is the correct factoring for that problem. Move to one side, done. Factor completely, done. Set each one of these factors equals to 0 and solve it. Again, they're identical. So when you solve this, you move the plus 1 there. 2x equals -1. To solve for x, you divide by 2. X equals -1/2. And when you solve this, that's the same as this. X equals -1/2. When you have the same answer, you don't put that twice. You only write it once. So the solution to that's only one. That's it. You're not going to write this. That's the same as this. And we'll do one more. Solve y minus 1 times y plus 2 equals 10. Now, again, we have to move everything to one side and clean it. Right now it looks like a mess. So I have to FOIL this one. And if I FOIL that, that's y squared plus 2y minus y minus 2 is equal to 10. Y squared plus y minus 2 is equal to 10. I got to move everything to one side. This has to come to this side. Change side, change sign. So this becomes y squared plus y minus 2 minus 10 is equal to 0. Or y squared plus y minus 12 is equal to 0. All of that still step number 1, move to one side. We did that. Step number 2, factor completely. Notice the leading coefficient is 1, so that's an easier one. I didn't say easy, easier. So we take the -12. Since the signs are different, one is going to be positive, one is going to be negative. Let's write the factors of -12 and their sum. How about -4 times a 3? That's a -1. Nope, that doesn't match. How about a 4 times a -3? That's a 1. That does match. So that is these are the correct factors. The negative goes with the 3. The positive goes with the 4. Now you set each factor equal to 0 and solve it. You move the plus 4 there. Y equals -4. You move the -3 there. Y equals 3. And we have two solutions to this problem. -4, 3. Plug them in. Make sure they work. So that's review, 15 questions review of chapter 6. Good luck.